The mood in the Pacific following the attack on Pearl Harbor was one of grim determination mixed with a gnawing sense of inferiority. The Mitsubishi A6M0, the star of the Imperial Japanese Navy's air fleet, was a marvel of aeronautical engineering. It was light, fast, and, above all, unbelievably maneuverable. For the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps pilots flying the Grumman F4F Wildcat, a sturdy but outclassed fighter, every dogfight was a desperate struggle for survival. The Zero could outturn them, outclimb them, and, with its longer range, could appear from places where no one expected it. The Wildcat, with its rugged design and self-sealing fuel tanks, could take a beating, but that often only delayed the inevitable. The kill ratio in those early months was a painful reflection of the technological imbalance. The American pilots were brave and skilled, but their aircraft was simply not on par with the enemy's. The Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation, known as the Iron Works for its robust, no-nonsense designs, knew they had to do something. They had built the Wildcat, and they were the ones who would have to build its successor. Even before the war officially began for the United States, Grumman had been working on a more powerful evolution of the Wildcat, but the events of December 1941 lit a fire under the project. The company's engineers, led by the legendary Leroy Grumman and his team, consulted directly with pilots returning from the front lines. They listened to their stories of the Zero's agility and its Achilles heel, its lack of armor and self-sealing fuel tanks. "Give us an engine," one pilot is said to have told them, "and we'll win the war." This wasn't just a request, it was a desperate plea from men who were fighting with one hand tied behind their backs. The result of this frantic design process was the F6F Hellcat, an aircraft that looked like a bigger, meaner version of its predecessor. It was an exercise in pure pragmatism. Grumman's engineers didn't try to outturn the Zero, they knew that was a fool's errand. Instead, they built a machine that would outclimb, outrun, and outgun it. The heart of the Hellcat was the massive Pratt & Whitney R2800 double Wasp engine, a 2,000 horsepower radial monster that was a testament to American industrial might. This engine gave the Hellcat the power it needed to fly faster and climb higher than the Zero, turning the Zero's altitude advantage into a major liability. The Hellcat was also a tank in the sky, with its robust airframe, heavy armor plating, and self-sealing fuel tanks, features the Zero tragically lacked. It was a brawler, built to absorb punishment and deliver a punishing blow in return. The first Hellcats were deployed to the USS Essex in early 1943, and the initial pilot response was cautiously optimistic. They were eager to try out the new aircraft, but years of fighting a superior enemy had left them wary. The pilots were quickly trained in a new kind of aerial combat, a departure from the turning and burning dogfights they were used to. The new doctrine, developed by naval aviators like Commander James H. Flatley, was to use the Hellcat's strengths and the Zero's weaknesses. The tactic was simple, deadly, and effective: boom and zoom. This strategy called for Hellcat pilots to maintain altitude advantage. They would spot the Zeros below them, dive at high speed to make a single, decisive attack with their 6.50 caliber machine guns, and then use that speed to climb back up to a safe altitude. This tactic completely neutralized the Zero's superior maneuverability. The Zero pilot would be left twisting and turning in the empty sky while the Hellcat pilot was already back at altitude, ready for another attack. The Hellcat, with its formidable armament, could often destroy a Zero with a single, well-placed burst of fire. The tables were about to turn in a dramatic and decisive way. The year 1943 marked the beginning of the end for the Japanese naval air power. The F6F Hellcat, now pouring off the assembly lines and onto the decks of American aircraft carriers in ever-increasing numbers, was the unstoppable force that was about to meet the immovable object. The Hellcat was not just a better aircraft, it was a symbol of a shift in American military strategy, a move from holding the line to overwhelming the enemy. The tide of the war was turning, and the Hellcat was the spearhead of that new offensive. The crescendo of this dominance came in the summer of 1944. As the U.S. Navy pushed its way across the Pacific, the Japanese High Command was desperate to stop the advance. They committed their remaining carrier fleets and their best pilots to a decisive battle in the Philippine Sea. The Americans called it the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. On June 19, 1944, wave after wave of Japanese aircraft, many of them flown by inexperienced pilots in outdated machines, flew into a veritable wall of Hellcats. The Hellcat pilots, now veterans of the new boom and zoom tactics, systematically dismantled the Japanese air formations. In a single day, they shot down over 300 Japanese aircraft while losing only a handful of their own. The sky was, in the words of one American pilot, just like a turkey shoot. This battle was not just a victory, it was a massacre that effectively wiped out the Japanese carrier air arm for the rest of the war. The aftermath of the Hellcat's ascendancy was a complete transformation of the air war. The kill ratio, which ultimately reached 19:1 against the Zero, was not a fluke, it was a direct result of a superior aircraft and a superior strategy. With the Japanese Air Force crippled, the U.S. Navy's carrier fleets were free to operate with near impunity. The Hellcats, now acting as both escort fighters and fighter bombers, patrolled the skies, strafing airfields, sinking ships, and providing close air support for the Marines fighting on the islands below. The Hellcat's toughness and reliability were also major factors. It was a relatively easy plane to fly and maintain, and its simple design meant that a damaged Hellcat could often be repaired and back in the air within a day. The long-term impact of the Hellcat's dominance cannot be overstated. It solidified the carrier-based fighter as the ultimate tool of naval power. Its success in the Pacific proved that a well-designed, powerful, and robust aircraft, when combined with sound tactics and a steady supply of well-trained pilots, could win the air war and, by extension, the land war as well. The F6F Hellcat became an icon of American air power and a symbol of the nation's industrial capacity to outproduce and out-innovate its enemies. Its legacy endures not just as a fighter, but as the aircraft that fundamentally changed the course of the war in the Pacific, bringing a swift and decisive end to the reign of the legendary Zero.